You're the groom.
You need to leave, now.
I run the catering company. I didn't know this was your wedding.
Get her out of my sight. Get her out of my sight. You let her father die to protect yourself. I protected this family. You destroyed it. Starting with me. You would throw away everything for her?
Empire City, the Cathedral Grand Ballroom, 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening. 300 guests. A wall of white orchids. And Serenity Cross walking through the back hallway with a clipboard in her hand, checking table numbers one last time before Empire City's most talked about wedding of the year begins. She built the cross table from nothing. 10 years of 18-hour days turned her name into the one every serious host in the South wanted on their invitation. Tonight was supposed to be proof that she finally belonged in Empire City too. Then she stepped through the ballroom doors, looked toward the altar to check the floral arch one final time, and the clipboard slipped straight out of her hands. Because the groom standing under those orchids, straightening his cufflinks, was Jaewon Han. The same Jaewon Han who, 10 years ago, sat across from her in a cold downtown office and had $3,200,000 wired into her account in exchange for one condition: that she disappear from his life and never come back. He looked up. Their eyes met. And for the first time in 10 years, neither of them could breathe. For a moment, Jaewon's face didn't move. Then something cold slid over it, a mask she remembered too well. "Get her out," he said, not to Serenity, but to the security officer near the doors. "Now." Whispers moved through the crowd like wind through wheat. Phones rose. A woman in a champagne gown leaned toward her friend and murmured that the caterer must be an old girlfriend, come to make a scene at the worst possible moment. Serenity did not shout. She did not cry. She bent down, picked up her clipboard, and looked Jaewon directly in the eye. "I didn't know this was your wedding," she said quietly. "I run the catering company you hired. That's all." He said nothing. He only watched, jaw tight, as two guards walked her out through the same doors she'd walked in through 20 minutes earlier, past 300 strangers who now believed she was exactly the kind of woman who chases rich men for money. It was the second time in her life he had let her be erased from a room without asking her a single question first. Outside, under the awning, Serenity pressed her hand flat against her chest, against a small silver pendant hidden beneath her blouse. Half of a heart broken clean down the middle. The other half last seen hanging from Jaewon's neck the night she signed papers she never should have signed. She had worn it every day for 10 years and never told anyone why. Her phone buzzed. Nadia Coleman, her best friend and business partner back in Charleston. "Please tell me the wedding of the century is going smoothly," Nadia said. "The groom is Jaewon," Serenity said. There was a long silence on the other end. "Jaewon Han? Our Jaewon Han." "He had me thrown out, Nadia. In front of everyone." "Did you tell him you never spent that money?" Serenity closed her eyes. Nobody but Nadia knew that truth. Not even Jaewon. "There wasn't exactly time," she said. "If you have ever been judged for something you never got the chance to explain, you already know exactly how Serenity felt standing outside that ballroom." Subscribe to Empire City Romance Stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight, because what happens next changes everything. Word of the incident moved fast through Empire City's business circles. By Monday morning, 3 of Serenity's confirmed clients had canceled, worried about being associated with the woman who crashed the Han wedding. Her entire Empire City expansion, every dollar of her savings, was suddenly hanging by a thread. Inside Han Tower, Jaewon sat across from his father, Chairman Jaewon Han, the man who had built the family's empire from a single import warehouse into one of the most powerful business dynasties in the country. Legitimate on paper. Feared underneath it. "Her company is called the Cross Table," Jaewon said, sliding a folder across the desk. "She was hired 11 months ago, before the guest list was even finalized. This wasn't a plan, Jaewon. It was a coincidence." "Then why do you look nervous, Appa?" Jaewon's expression did not change. Never did. But his hand, just for a second, tightened around his pen. "Stay away from her," he said. "You paid for that distance once. Don't be foolish enough to buy it back." Jaewon said nothing. But that night, for the first time in 10 years, he opened the old file he had never let himself read twice. The signed agreement. Her signature at the bottom. the words that were supposed to prove she chose the money over him. He read it until sunrise. Serenity found him waiting outside the Cross Table's new Empire City location 2 days later, standing in the rain without an umbrella, like a man who no longer noticed weather. "You need to leave," she said, unlocking the door. "You already cost me enough this week. I need to understand something." His voice was rough. "You took $3 million from me and disappeared without a word. Why does that still make you angry at me?" Serenity turned so fast her keys hit the floor. "Is that what you think happened?" "It's what happened, Serenity. I was 23. I loved you. And 1 week after your father found out about us, 2 men I had never met came to my apartment and told me my mother's hospital bills would stop getting paid unless I signed whatever was put in front of me and left the state within 72 hours. Her voice shook, but she did not look away. "I didn't take your money, Jaewon. I was told what would happen if I didn't disappear." For the first time in 10 years, Jaewon Han looked like a man whose entire foundation had just cracked open. "That's not possible," he said quietly. "My father told me you asked for the money yourself." "Then one of us has been lied to for 10 years, Serenity said. "And I don't think it was me." As she turned away, he caught the glint of a thin chain at her neck, and something in him tightened. If someone you loved was told a lie about you for 10 years, would you even know where to begin proving the truth? Like this video if you already think you know who's lying, and stay close, because that truth is about to change everything for both of them. That night, Jaewon went looking for the one man who had been present for everything and said nothing for a decade. Ji-hoon Park, the Han family's longtime head of security, the man who had personally driven the car that took Serenity to the airport 10 years ago. He found him at his modest home in Queens, retired now, a framed photo of Jaewon as a boy still sitting on the mantel. "I need the truth," Jaewon said. "All of it." Ji-hoon's hands trembled around his teacup. "Your father told her a rival family had learned about the two of you, and that if she stayed, they would use her to hurt you. He said the money was protection, not payment. He told her it would break your heart less if she let you believe she left for money instead of fear. And you drove her to that airport knowing that was a lie?" "I drove her to that airport," Ji-hoon said, "because your father told me it would save both your lives. I have hated myself for it every year since." Jaewon sat down slowly, the file from the night before still folded in his coat pocket. Everything he had believed about the worst night of his life had been built on a story his own father invented to control him. By the end of the week, Jaewon had done something his father never expected. He called an emergency meeting of the Han Group board and removed his father as acting CEO of daily operations, citing an internal matter requiring his full attention, without explaining further. Do-hyun's allies on the board, men who had followed him for 30 years, suddenly found themselves reporting to a 31-year-old they had once dismissed as too soft for this business. For the first time since Jaewon was a teenager, his father looked uncertain. "You would destroy this family over an old caterer?" Do-hyun said, cornering him in the executive elevator. "I would destroy anything built on a lie that cost me 10 years, Jaewon said. "Starting with whatever you're still hiding about her father." Do-hyun's face changed for exactly 1 second before he composed it again. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You will," Jaewon said. "By Friday." That single flicker on his father's face told Jaewon more than 10 years of silence ever had. This had never only been about protecting him from a rival family. There was something else his father needed Serenity gone for. Meanwhile, back in Charleston, Nadia found Serenity sitting on the floor of the storage unit they had shared since college, surrounded by boxes neither of them had opened in years. "You said you never went through your dad's things after he passed," Nadia said gently. "Why now?" "Because Jaewon asked me if my father ever worked for the Hans," Serenity said, pulling out a water-damaged cardboard box labeled in her father's handwriting. "And I realized I actually don't know the answer." Inside, beneath old tax folders and a church program from his funeral, was a thin ledger book, its cover soft with age. Rows of numbers, dates going back 14 years. And at the top of the first page in faded blue ink, Han Import and Holdings Junior Bookkeeper D. Cross. Serenity sat back against the cold concrete floor, the ledger open in her lap. "My father worked for them," she whispered. "Before he died. Before any of this." Nadia crouched beside her. Serenity, what if this isn't about you and Jaewon at all? What if it never was? For the first time since the wedding, Serenity felt something sharper than heartbreak. She felt afraid. Not of losing Jaewon again, but of what her father might have seen all those years ago, that someone had been willing to erase her to keep buried. Serenity drove to Empire City that night with the ledger on the passenger seat. She found Jaewon at Han Tower, alone in his office long after the building had emptied. "My father worked for your family," she said, setting the ledger on his desk. 14 years ago. Before he got sick. Before I ever met you." Jaewon opened it slowly, his eyes moving down columns of numbers that meant nothing to Serenity, but visibly drained the color from his face. "These accounts don't exist anymore," he said quietly. "They were supposed to have been destroyed after the company restructured. My father told the board a fire in the old warehouse took every early record." "Jaewon, what am I looking at?" "You're looking," he said, "at proof that for 11 years, my father has been hiding exactly how this family's fortune was really built. And your father's name is written on almost every page." Before Serenity could respond, the office door opened. Do-hyun stood in the doorway, flanked by two men she recognized from the worst night of her life, 10 years ago, in her old apartment. "Put that book down, Serenity," Do-hyun said quietly. "You have no idea what you're holding." "I think I finally do," she said. Jaewon Han just walked into that room with the same men who once threatened Serenity's family. "What do you think is really written in that ledger?" Comment your prediction below and hit subscribe so you don't miss it, because the truth is 30 seconds away. Do-hyun closed the office door behind him. 14 years ago, he said, your father discovered that half of this family's early fortune wasn't built on imports. It was built on money that should have gone to the families of 3 men who died in a warehouse fire I never reported to the authorities. Your father kept records. He was going to go to the police. Serenity's chest tightened. You told me he died of a heart attack. He did, Do-hyun said. 2 weeks after I offered him a settlement to stay quiet, and 1 week after he refused it. The room went silent except for the low hum of the city outside the window. So when Jaewon fell in love with his daughter 9 years later, Do-hyun continued, and I recognized your last name on a hospital form, I panicked. It was never about status, Serenity. It was never about protecting my son from a rival family. It was about making sure the one person on earth who might inherit her father's suspicions never got close enough to this family to look. Jaewon stood slowly, his voice shaking with a fury Serenity had never heard from him. You didn't just steal 10 years from us, he said. You let me believe the woman I love chose money over me, to hide the fact that you let her father die rather than let the truth reach the police. I protected this family, Do-hyun said. You destroyed it, Jaewon said. The day you decided a man's silence was worth more than his life. The board of Han Group Holdings convened an emergency session 2 days later. Jaewon presented the ledger, cross-referenced against the company's records by an independent auditor. Ji-hoon Park had contacted himself, choosing honesty over decades of obedience. Do-hyun did not go to prison. The statute of limitations on the original financial crimes had passed years earlier, and Jaewon, despite everything, could not bring himself to publicly destroy his own father's name in a case that would drag Han Group's 5,000 employees down with it. But the board, once shown the truth, voted unanimously to remove Do-hyun Han from every remaining position of authority, effective immediately. His signature was no longer valid on a single account. His office was reassigned by the end of the week. Ji-hoon located Serenity's father's surviving records and, working with Jaewon, arranged a private settlement paid to the families of the 3 men who died in that warehouse fire 14 years earlier. Money that, this time, came with no conditions and no silence attached. I can't undo what I did to your father, Do-hyun told Serenity, the closest thing to an apology he ever managed, delivered without quite looking at her directly. Or the 10 years I took from both of you. No, Serenity said. You can't. She turned and walked out of the boardroom, and for the first time in 10 years, nobody stopped her from leaving on her own terms. Jaewon found her 3 weeks later on the rooftop terrace of the Cross Table's newly opened Empire City location. String lights overhead, The same skyline that had watched them lose each other 10 years earlier, now watching them stand 3 feet apart in silence. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive my family," he said. "I already know that isn't mine to ask for." "Then why are you here?" "Because I spent 10 years thinking you chose money over me, and I never once tried hard enough to find out I was wrong. That's on me, not just my father. I let it be easy to stop looking." He reached into his collar and pulled out a thin silver chain. Half a broken heart, worn smooth from a decade against his skin. "I never stopped wearing mine either." Serenity's hand rose slowly to the pendant hidden beneath her own blouse. "There's still $3,180,000 sitting in a Charleston bank account with your name on the wire transfer," she said. "I used just enough to leave the state. I never wanted anyone to be able to say I took a cent from you that I didn't earn myself." Jaewon went still. "You never touched it." "Not once," she said. "Not because I didn't need it. Because I didn't want it to mean what everyone decided it meant. We can't get those years back, Jaewon." "I know," he said quietly. "I'm not asking for them back. I'm asking for whatever time is left on your terms at your pace, starting from the actual truth instead of a lie your father built, and mine believed, to keep it buried." Serenity was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached beneath her collar and pulled her half of the necklace into the light, where it caught the string lights and, for the first time in 10 years, sat beside its missing other half. "Then we start now," she said. Slowly. Honestly. And never again without asking. 2 broken pieces finally back where they belonged. If you believe some truths are worth waiting 10 years to find, hit subscribe and like this video before you go, and tell me in the comments. Could you have forgiven Jaewon? Or would 10 years of silence have been too long for you? 6 months later, the Cross Table's Empire City flagship opened its doors for good. Serenity's name on the awning in gold letters. Jaewon in the back corner booth where he sat almost every evening now, never asking for a reserved seat, always waiting to be invited in. Some silences protect the people we love. But the ones we never question are usually protecting someone else instead. Thank you for watching Empire City Romance Stories, the home of the emotional romance dramas you cannot stop thinking about. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell me below. What would you have needed to hear after 10 years of silence before you could finally say yes again?